Today we're going to talk about interval notation and set builder. There are ways to express your answer when you have an equation or an inequality. So you'll follow along in the notes here with Pear Deck, and Pear Deck will show you, and you can take your notes on there or you can print them out on paper. So first let's talk about set builder. This is not part of the Pear Deck, but if you look at set builder notation, it's again a way to represent an answer. And all you have to do is you put these little squiggly lines, the braces, you put your variable, you put a line, you put your variable, and you put what the answer is. So how it reads is the set x such that x equals 1. If you need to do it for absolute value, you can use it as well, and what you would do is put the braces x such that x equals, and you would put the two answers that you got for your absolute value equation. Now when we have inequalities, there's two ways you can write your answer. You can write it in set builder, and it would be the same thing, x such that x, and then you put the inequality symbol there. Or we're going to learn something called interval notation. With interval notation, it's a way that you'll learn so you don't have to write an inequality. And what you'll find is a lot of upper level math classes use it all the time. So on a graph, if you have an open circle, in interval notation you're going to use parentheses. If you have a closed circle or filled in, you're going to use brackets. If your inequality is pointing to the left, that's going to negative infinity. And if it points to the right, it's going positive infinity. So this is the notation that we will use. So with Pear Deck, what we did is we took each one, and they're each on a slide. So we don't need you to know right now exactly if it means open or closed. What we want you to be able to do is look at your graph and be able to write the answer in interval notation. So as you can see here, there's an open circle on 1 and an open circle on 5. So an open circle gives a parentheses. So that's why the answer, it almost looks like an ordered pair, but it's not. It's called interval notation. You'll use it in Algebra 2 a lot, in pre-calculus and calculus and IB math. So then if you notice the difference here, this is filled in. These are closed. So that's why we use the brackets. And we put the smallest number, the largest number. So when you're looking at interval notation, it's always smallest number, comma, largest number. And then you have to decide if you're going to put a parentheses or a bracket. And our next example, now we're going to kind of incorporate them. We have an open and a closed circle. So you look at the smallest number, it's 1. You put a parentheses, you put a comma. You look at the biggest number, it's 5, and it's filled in, it's closed, so it uses a bracket. In our next example, we kind of reversed it. So what we have is it's filled in at 1, that's why we use a bracket, and it's open at 5, so we use a parentheses. Oh no, here we introduce arrows. When you have an arrow, again, you start with the smallest number, which is 1, and it has a parentheses because it's open. And it's going to the right. When it goes to the right, it's infinity. And infinity always has a parentheses, whether we're talking about positive infinity or in our next example, negative infinity. You always use a parentheses. So in our next example here, you can see the smallest number, it's going to the left. The smallest number is actually negative infinity. And we have the arrow going to the left, so we put a parentheses. We put a comma, The biggest number it can be is 5, and this is filled in, so you get with that a bracket. So go ahead and take a few minutes, and I want you to match the graph with the appropriate interval notation. You can stop the video, and then what you'll do is start the video again, and it will go over, it will show you the answers, so you can see if you're correct. Go ahead and practice those 6 problems now. Okay, so here are the answers that you should have gotten. On here, B, E, F, C, A, and D. And you can see D and A have infinity, and they're both with parentheses. So the question comes up, these are all ands, right? These are ands. When we did our compound inequalities last week, we had our ands and we had our ors. So here what I'd like to show you is, how do you write a compound inequality in interval notation? So I wrote it on top as an inequality, and then I wrote it in interval notation. So if you think about it, what you do is you look at just this one, x is less than 0. So that means it's going to the left, negative infinity, comma 0. When you see the word or, you're going to put a big U here. The U stands for union. Then over here we have a betweener, an and. 2 is the smallest one. Then we put a comma, 10 is the biggest. And since there's a line under here with 10, we use the bracket. And there's no line here, so we use the parentheses. Go ahead and stop the video and see how you would do this particular one. Okay, so what you should have had, see, this is going to the left, so negative infinity, comma 3. This or tells you that you're going to put a U for union, and x is greater than or equal to 6. The smallest number it can be here is 6, and it goes out to positive infinity. And you will see that infinities have with them parentheses. So now what we'd like you to do is to practice on these ones that are written here. I will show the answers, and then please check Schoology for any additional work that you need to do. Here are the answers.